Tone is in the fingers, but not today. I'm going to be picking tortex out my hair for weeks at that point, but that is the point of today's video. What I'm going to be doing today is I've got a selection of 10 plectrums, and I'm going to be tier listing them from S to F, S being the highest, F being the lowest, and this is a personal preference. I'm not really going to be focusing on like the differences in sounds, although I'd be very interested to hear your opinion of that if any of them do make a drastic difference to the tone. I'm mostly going to be talking about kind of user function, how it feels, how I would, use it, if I would use it through a whole gig, all that sort of stuff in there. So let's just dive right in. We're going to be updating tier list throughout the video as well, so let's jump in with the first plectrum. Okay, so kicking things off on our fancy new plectrum cam here as well. Let's maybe go with that one that is certainly in abundance right now, certainly in the studio, and that is the classic Dunlop Tortex, this being a very fancy 20th anniversary guitar plectrum. Probably one of the ones that people, probably I would say is the most played one. I'd certainly guess, anyway. Let's get a little play and see what this sounds like. I think this is a 1mm as well, so this is kind of your middle of the road sort of Tortex here. So again, this is, your kind of, I wouldn't so much call it like a bog standard, but definitely if we were to kind of benchmark one as like the standard, I'd probably say the Tortex is. Obviously, there's a bunch of different thicknesses, there's a bunch of different colors, which is actually very important as well. It's kind of just the plectrum really, isn't it? Like... Certainly not to me, that's not really adjusting much of the sound, so I'm going to put it B. Kind of right in the middle. It's the one that should be the benchmark, this is what all other plectrums should, in my opinion, again, kind of be based off of, and again, this is kind of, depending on the thickness you choose. I quite like kind of a 1mm because it's still a little bit bendy, but still pretty solid if, you're going to be kind of playing metal or anything like that. Okay, sticking with Tortex and Dunlop, we have moved on to the flow, and particularly this is the 0.73. What kind of makes the difference with the flow is that shape there, it kind of comes to like a little bit more of a point just at the end, and it feels a little bit kind of flatter and fatter, certainly to me, on the side. But I think the more important thing about this is that it feels like a Tortex, it doesn't feel like you're playing a completely different shape or like a different kind of plectrum. Now, I know I said the Tortex was the kind of nice middle ground. It's what every other plectrum, again, in my opinion, should be based off of. I'm going to put the flow in A tier. I actually do think this is a better, for me, again, that this is a better plectrum than the standard Tortex. It feels a little bit more accurate. I'm not kind of noticing any difference to the sound. Again, I'm probably not going to notice anything just in here, but on the recordings, it's going to be a little bit better. But yeah, if you've not tried a flow, you should check out a flow. I'm just going to come out and say it. This is the GOAT. S tier already. It's a Jazz 3. It's just your normal Jazz 3, particularly the red one here. If anybody knows, they know. Like, you ask anybody who is a Jazz 3 player, you don't even need to ask them. They're going to tell you before you even need to ask. But for anybody who has converted to a Jazz 3, you know what you're talking about. These things are they're just really accurate. I actually like think that bigger plectrums are just not cumbersome, but definitely after getting used to like something like this, because I mean certainly when I play it, like I've got barely any of it on show there. You know, I'm almost like kind of tucking it between my fingers here. Which let's get a little sound from it and just see if this kind of like more solid material makes the difference. No competition, S tier, it's our first one of the list. Keeping with the Jazz 3 family, we are on to the Jazz 3 XL now, and this is particularly the Stiffo one, which is the black Jazz 3, just in case you wanted to know. Now, I know I said that the Jazz 3 was the GOAT, and it was S tier already, but I'm gonna have to put before I even play it, I'm gonna have to put the XL in A tier. It's still really good. It's still got that kind of Jazz 3 vibe to it, and certainly that snap that you would expect from a Jazz 3. But I think the whole point for me is that the Jazz 3 is really small, and it's, you know, it's not too much in the way. This just feels a little bit too much for me, but still, you know, quite familiar territory. Still feels really good, maybe just a bit too big for me, but if anybody doesn't like the size of a Jazz 3, then this is the one for you. Well, we've been in the realm of tortex and nylon. Let's move on to maybe the most different material of this tier list here. This is a D'Addario celluloid plectrum, and it's actually a 50mm that I chose, particularly because, I mean, it's so loose. Like, that thing is just, you know, there's a lot of kind of bend in that there, which you'll hear when I start to play it, because spoiler alert, I'm not really that into this one, but for a certain application I am. But let's just check out some sounds first, shall we? Nah, not for me. I'm not crazy on that one there, only just because I just felt like I was pure not in control of it. What I will say, C tier by the way, kind of below a tortex, and only gets a C tier because for one application, see a celluloid, it's particularly that kind of thickness with an acoustic, sounds way better than say using like a, you know, a Jazz 3 or something like that, which goes to show variety is really good for you. Okay, let's move to slightly more familiar territory again, and here is a Dunlop nylon 1 millimeter, sorry, which I actually used to use these before I moved on to Jazz 3. This is what I would have a million of, and I quite like them just because like they didn't feel as like rock solid as, you know, like a tortex or Jazz 3 or anything like that. So you can still use them on acoustic, you still use them on electric, but that is the only issue that I found with them, is that they bend ever so slightly, you know, when you've used them for quite a bit. These get an A tier because I did used to use them, so maybe a little bit biased towards it as well. But that, you know, the fact that you can use it for acoustic and electric, I think is a really good advantage as well. The only reason it's not an S tier is just because the structural integrity of even, you know, something like the 1mm here will start to kind of bend over time. I don't know if you could see that one there, but it's coming up at the top there a little bit. Not the worst, but it's no S tier. And you know what? See, just because I'm cheating as well, here is the 1mm nylon max grip, which has got that Dunlop, like, kind of not serrated, corrugated sort of feel to the top there.
Serrated.
Which gives it, it's not going to cut you, don't worry. This is going to obviously mean that your plectrum isn't going to fly out of your hand just as you're playing it, but you're probably getting the same sort of snap in the sound as the previous nylon there. Okay, the next plectrum that we're going to look into is this kind of strangely teardrop shaped pick here that's called the attack pick, without a C, so attack pick, which it's got this kind of divot on the top here. It's got these little nubbins to like get a little hold of, and it's almost kind of like a Jazz 3. Like, it does feel somewhat similar with that point there. I think maybe with a little bit of time to get used to it, it would, I don't know, because I do kind of like it, but there's something about, like, see when it starts to move a little bit, because like it's got this specific shape for where your fingers are to go, it, like, turns on its side or anything, it just sort of feels a little bit weird. B? No, I'm gonna give it a C. It's down there. It's got a specific use for it, I definitely think, but as my like everyday one, I don't think I'm gonna be using an attack pick, but who knows? I might kind of change my mind like I did with the Jazz 3, but currently it's a C. I was about to ask if you can see that on the camera there, but of course you can. Look at the damn size of this thing. It's absolutely massive. So this is I need to read it as well on it. This is a Dunlop USA primetone sculpted plectra as well. Does this even count on the list because it's known as that? Of course it does. But this is made out of Altex, which is certainly a type of plastic here, but look, initial impressions on this, I do not like this. This is too big. It's kind of, despite it having a little bit of grippy on it, it's kind of made, like, it feels like it's going to move loads. Let's just see what we're getting. Nah, not for me. That's just too big. Nah. I don't see any application for that whatsoever. F tier. Okay, hear me out. This is cheating again, but we have a Jazz 3 max grip here, and I know you might be thinking, you might be going, Keiran, it's a Jazz 3. Of course you're going to put it in S tier. You're a Jazz 3 simp. That's all you play. I'm going to put this in A tier. Now, hear me out. The max grip's great. See if you're playing some high octane metal or something like that. Let's get those triplets on the go. You know, you got the... Great for that. This pick didn't move at all. But what I find, and this is a me thing, let me know if you do this as well, but like, see when you're playing, let's go back to like the normal Jazz 3 there, but I kind of like to, you know, like move it a little bit, depending on like the angle of my hand, depending on what I'm going to be playing. I even like to kind of tuck it into my hand there as well, you know, so I can use my fingers. Not to say that you can't do that with the max grip, but the whole point of this is it's not meant to move. It's meant to just be stuck in your fingers. So again, doing like metally stuff, amazing for that, but for everyday applications, I'm going to move it down just a little bit into A, because I don't think you're going to really be losing many of these because they're pretty much stuck to your hand. And then finally, we have a signature plectrum here. This is the James Hetfield Papa Het White Fang Flow, and particularly this is the 1mm version. And this kind of feels a little bit more like nylon, this one. It's not got that kind of tortexy feel to it, and it's actually got a max grip on it too, so no spoiler alert, this is going to go into A tier, because there's flow in there. We've got the Jazz 3 max grip in there as well, and you know, it's a Hetfield pick. You're going to want to turn all the reverb off and all that. And that's about as much as I can play before we get demonetized on that. But, you know, for all those like super high octane riffs, don't lambast me for not playing all downstrokes there as well. But what I really like quite about this plectrum is that despite being like a metal kind of focused one, it still sounds really good on cleans. Yeah, A tier for this as well, and because it's got a pretty cool little wolf on the front there if you're into that whatsoever. Let me know if you want me to do like a tier list of like artist picks as well, because there's certainly quite a lot of them. So that was my list of ranking plectrums. Now, again, this was my list. You may disagree with me, you may agree with me. Let me know down in the comments and whether there, give us a like and a subscribe, because you can keep up with all the latest news at Guitar HQ. And like I said just a moment ago, if you do want to see me like tier list anything else, guitars, pedals, more plectrums, this was a lot of fun to do. I'm certainly not going to be pouring Boss pedals over my head at the start like I did at this video, but do let us know down in the comments. But until next time, I've been Keiran, and this has been a very quick tier list of some random assortment of plectrums. Have a great day.
Tier yourself.
Nah.
I don't think that looks as good as you think it does.
Probably looks absolutely rubbish.